What happens to children who have opposition and defiant disorder, or ODD, when they grow up?
What happens to children with oppositional defiant disorder when they grow up? Well, there will be some lucky children who outgrow it. In fact, about half of children with ODD as preschoolers will have no psychiatric problems at all by age 8. Another possible outcome would be that it could turn into something else. About 5 to 10% of preschoolers with ODD will eventually end up with ADHD, but without any signs of ODD. Other times, oppositional defiant disorder turns into conduct disorder, but this happens fairly early, so after 2 to 3 years of ODD, if it hasn't graduated into conduct disorder, then it probably never will. The biggest predictor of whether or not a child with ODD will develop conduct disorder is whether or not his parent was a career criminal who also had oppositional defiant disorder. Another possible outcome is that the child would continue to have ODD its entire life but without any other problems. And another outcome would be he'd have ODD but also have some comorbid anxiety disorder or depressive disorder. By the time ODD children are at the end of elementary school, about 25% will have some mood or anxiety problems that oftentimes can be disabling. So it's going to be important for you to watch for signs of mood disorder and anxiety as your ODD child grows older. But will the ODD child end up as a criminal? Statistically, it's not likely. If he develops conduct disorder, it's a possibility, but even then the percentage is fairly small. So not to panic. That's why we have the website in the ebook. And I appreciate your question. Thank you. We can take our next question now, please.
What is the difference between oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD?
The difference between oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD. Well, ODD is characterized by aggressiveness but not impulsiveness. ODD kids tend to push their parents' buttons and their teachers' buttons on purpose, whereas ADHD kids do it by mistake. Children with ODD can sit still, they can pay attention. Children with ADHD find sitting still and paying attention very difficult. There's also a difference between kids with ADHD alone versus kids with ADHD plus ODD. Children and adolescents with ADHD alone do things without thinking, but not necessarily malicious things. For example, an ADHD kid could get in a wrestling match with another kid and hurt the other kid, but then feel sorry afterwards. The ODD child would get in a wrestling match and hurt the other person and then deny that they hurt the other person, but then brag about it to their friends. You could think of ODD as being characterized by two sets of problems: aggressiveness and a tendency to purposefully bother and irritate others. ADHD kids do bother and irritate others, but they do it accidentally, whereas ODD kids do it on purpose. You could think of ODD as behavior designed to elicit a reaction out of others. ODD kids often lose their temper, they argue with adults, they actively defy to comply with adults' rules and requests, they deliberately annoy people, they blame others for their mistakes and their misbehavior, they're often touchy and easily annoyed by others, they're often angry and resentful, spiteful, and vindictive. Those are the criteria for ODD. Now, this doesn't mean that they're bad kids. In fact, they're good kids, but they're very intense kids. And they seek intensity from others as well, especially their parents. Unfortunately, they have discovered that their parents are much more intense, exciting, and interesting when things are going wrong. So what parents may have viewed as punishment for their ODD child was actually a reward. The child received a bigger payoff for misbehavior. In other words, he got more of a reaction out of others by misbehaving than by behaving. So the misbehavior was reinforced. ODD is the most common problem in children. It usually begins between the ages of 1 and 3. It's more common in boys than girls before puberty, but it's equally divided in both males and females after puberty. And I thank you for your question. We'll take our next question now, please.
Which is more difficult to treat, ODD or conduct disorder?
Which is more difficult to treat, ODD or conduct disorder? The short answer to that would be conduct disorder. It's not only more difficult to treat than ODD, it is the most serious childhood psychiatric disorder. You can think of conduct disorder as just a worse version of oppositional defiant disorder. About 6 to 10% of males have it. About 2 to 9% of females have it. There are some differences between conduct disorder and ODD. ODD kids tend to do better in school, but conduct disorder kids tend to have better social skills. Think of conduct disorder as behavior in which the basic rights of others are violated. It involves aggression to people, aggression to animals, destruction of property. The conduct disorder kid tends to lie a lot and steal a lot. He tends to violate house rules and violate laws out in the community, all of which create problems for the kid academically, socially, and later in life vocationally. So again, ODD is a milder version of conduct disorder. It is easier to treat. Mild ODD tends not to lead to conduct disorder, whereas severe oppositional defiant disorder does tend to lead to conduct disorder. And the biggest difference between ODD and conduct disorder is the issue of risk-taking and safety. If you have a child in the home with conduct disorder, you probably don't feel entirely safe. And you probably feel that your possessions are not entirely safe because things come up missing, things can end up broken. It is the most difficult thing to live with for parents and for siblings. Conduct disorder kids can be dangerous, whereas ODD kids tend not to be dangerous. Also, conduct disorder can be the precursor to antisocial personality disorder. Now, does this mean that conduct disorder kids are bad kids? No, they're destructive kids and they're risk-taking kids, but they're kids that just need a lot of non-traditional parenting strategies. Your traditional parenting strategies will not work with a child with conduct disorder. And that's why we have the information on the website that you need in dealing with this child. And I thank you for your question.